Hello, everyone. It's Dan King here, as always, from Fireside Strategic. Welcome to our videocast, Humanity Builds Better Businesses, where we celebrate leaders that do transformational work within organizations, helping their clients grow and lead teams with humanity. Today, I'm very happy to be chatting with Keith Cornies, former award-winning realtor and founder of AIM Coaching. Keith, welcome to the show. Great to have you, and would love to learn a little bit about you and what you do in the world.
Well, thanks, Dan. I'm really honored to be here with you. It was a great phone call out of the blue that I got, how the world works, the connection through my coach, Zaina Kunik. You had talked to her, and so a shout out to her for setting us up. A little bit about me is I was lost, and then I was found, and when I got found, I got direction, and then through my own personal journey of counseling and self-help, and then also through 25 years of sales and owning businesses and running businesses. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Kind of saw the matrix one day and realized that we are all wanting to make a difference in people's lives, and some of us know it and some of us don't. And my journey is to spark that in everybody, to show them the common thread. And through that process, it's all boiled down to what I am as a solution-focused coach with a positive outcome frame. And I've been doing that for 11 years, pretty much around 20,000 hours, one-on-one, what I like to call practical research on human behavior and how when we are connected to a purpose and more of a humanity outlook, how that really impacts people's lives and businesses where, I can take I've doubled and tripled companies' profits, incomes, engaging their staff and their employees in a rewarding environment where they come in and thrive by tapping into the collective genius. That's kind of one of my things. Everyone has a genius, and I want everyone to see their genius. And just before we get started, I guess to clarify, because my uncle in England hates that word because he thinks it's arrogant. But what I'm really saying is, we all have history and we all have experiences and a peripheral genius that's taking in information all the time. And we have behaviors that sometimes are affected by that. And also, that siren went by. That was good. Also, we have behaviors that are affected by that. And then when we can tap into that, we can actually tap into a deeper part of ourselves and really excel at the human we're meant to be. So as a leader, especially.
Wow. A lot of richness to unpack there. I've probably got about 8 questions in my mind, so I'm trying to prioritize at the moment which one to start with. But if we all have this common thread, if in the end we all want to discover our humanity, we all want to use it in order to discover and achieve our purposes, what are the biggest things that tend to get in the way? If you think about your 20,000 hours and you reflect on what the obstacles are to people finding that common thread, what do you think the biggest ones are?
Well, when I'm coaching people and we get to say 6 months in, they get to a statement where they'll have a deep thought and then they go, I am enough. And they say it with this emphasis and passion. And I'm like, oh, tell me more, right? Meanwhile, I've had, over 600 clients and they all get to this point of I am enough, which is realizing that they don't need to be more than what they are. They just need to be who they are. So I am enough is one of the common core threads. Another common core thread is when I walk them through a process, which is the logical levels, which is done by, you can Google logical levels, you'll get 3 million hits. And the logical levels go to identity, and I take it one step further, which is purpose. And then I've taken it beyond the purpose, which is legacy. And then I get them to core values. So it's the lack of knowledge of your core values, the lack of connection with your core values. And then I teach them to be disciplined in that leads them to purpose. That's number 2. So lack of connection to core values. So the takeaways, every client will get to these points. Then there's, and then the third thing, the obstacle that gets in the way is their thinking. Everyone thinks what they think to be true, but they never really unpacked what their thinking is. Like, how do I think? Like when I turned 19, I voted for PC government in Canada because my dad did, and I believed what he believed. And then when I took my first political science class in college and was arguing with the professor, I was I was adamant, but I had no knowledge like of what was I was doing. So there's this programming. What I like to say is it's not you, it's your brain, how mental programming limits our success. It's actually my book. That's my book, and it's launching on May 7th. And what I'm saying is we are limited by our programming, and we all have lots of things in common, yet our lives have all these variables that make us different. So one of the common basics is a survival brain, and its job is to survive, and that's fear and, scarcity and all that stuff. And if you lead your team from fear and scarcity or ego, let's say, and then I'd like everyone to know that that's okay. So let's slow things down here a bit. Sorry. So we unpack that. The third one was what I just said there. If I can remember what that was. Don't think what you think to be true. It's our thinking.
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing, I guess, that we all have in common, I've never done this before, so I've never boiled it down to four. So I'm just following my genius. I'm letting it speak. And this is what I teach my clients to do, is to listen to the deeper listening where your heart, mind is connected.
Yeah.
And so, right. So, so the fourth thing, I guess, that I was going to say was, if you're not connecting, you're protecting. So in a world where business is about connection and sales is about connection, and meanwhile you're protecting, but you don't know you're protecting because, remember, you think everything you know to be true. So there's this deep place of ego, and ego is not this bad thing. Ego is what we all have. And I describe it as the adult 54-year-old Keith protecting the 8-year-old Keith inside. And so when I'm talking to you, Dan, and you say something that triggers a mechanism in my thinking, then the ego comes out to protect me, and I don't get the result I want. So there you go. I guess those would be four things that are common for everybody. And I love coaching people through those processes. And the tools I developed are simple, and I simplify everything so they can see it. So I could give you a question that shows you how to, it's a complicated question. I always ask my clients, what's the positive intention of the negative behavior? Right. Yeah. And then they say, there is none. And I'm like, just think about it. And then they go, well, I guess it's, one guy was like, why don't you schedule your time? What's the positive intention of not scheduling your time? And he said, so I'm not blocked in. So I have some freedom to do the things I want to do. And I said, well, how's that working for you? Are you doing the things you want to do? And he's like, no. And I'm like, what if you planned everything, put the things you wanted to do in, and put the time in there, and left yourself this variable of adjustment? And he's like, wow, that changed everything in his business. He started to schedule, he started to do appointments, he started to block time. The next thing you know, he doubled his income in his business and hired more people and took off. So so those are the things I love to coach around. I love to help people change the way they see things and think, and show them how the brain processes that so that they understand and optimize the use of their brain, because it's the tool that's running their whole life.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the focus on the brain. We've always got it. Sometimes we don't love it. Sometimes it's throwing thoughts at us that are not our favorites, but it's always going to be there. So you better have a relationship to it. You better have a more conscious relationship to it. Otherwise, you're in some trouble.
Yeah, I love that. Whenever I get full body goosebumps, it means I'm in a truth. And you just spoke a truth. So I just could take a quick note, right? The relationship with our brain, which I've never really seen it that way. What I've talked about is our mental health, and that, right? I've talked about, like you and I are having a conversation, and our relationship right now has a mental health, and it can either be good or bad. My wife and I, our relationship has a mental health. I have my mental health. Companies have a mental health. Right. And so if we look at what's the mental health, it's a great litmus test. Like, what's the mental health of my company? And then the key to that is language is the diet for mental health, as food is the diet for physical health.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. So healthy language, right? In order to build healthy bones, a healthy body. And I think in this moment, I really, really love some of the language you're using. We talk about mental health. Usually that's a phrase that often is in pathological context, right? But the reality is we all have mental health issues. There's no question about it. And particularly in this moment, I think it's interesting how trauma reflects on this story, right? So it's a huge, huge factor in organizational health, very, very rarely discussed. In this moment, I mean, if we can't see it, then when are we going to be able to see it?
Well, what's beautiful is I love that you use the word trauma. So we'll come to that. And imagine as if, Dan, you're the CEO of a company and I'm a CEO of a company, and we stand up and we say, the mental health of our company isn't good. And we just use that language. We make the language of mental health something that's everywhere instead of something that is about me and it's my identity.
Yes.
And I were to say, okay, guys, what's the mental health of our company? How do we improve it? We're also teaching people how to take their inventory on their mental health and apply the same things that they would do at their company and their own life.
Yes. Yes.
That's what leadership's all about. Leadership's all about leaning into the stuff that nobody wants to lean into, creating a model of business to bring into your business so that you practice that. And then the employees naturally take that on because you've led the path and they're not, they're walking with you and absorbing.
In some ways, it's analogous to a parent-child relationship, right? People are going to take their cues from you. When you are seen to be the provider of the paycheck, which incidentally is linked to survival, which you talked about at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You are playing a huge role in how our nervous systems perceive survival when you lead a company. And so that is so massively important in this moment. If my survival's threatened, my mental health's going to be threatened too.
Every leader that's listening out there should look at Dr. David Brock's work on the neuroscience of of SCARF being in threat or reward, which is SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relational fairness. I use that in my book. You'll see that's the filter in which people see through the world. I coach people to change that filter from survival to a positive outcome. And if we talk about, so when we, so great. So you said the company is the one that provides for the paycheck. So imagine this, right? Everyone can talk about the company. And if we talk about the third party, we're not talking about me. So in negotiations, you bring up a third thing. It's called systems thinking. And so, right, you've heard this. And here's how it works emotionally, right? So I had a client that was in here. He runs a mill. I think they do about 64 million and their payroll's 45. So they got 300 employees and he's got all these people fighting. And I said to him, it goes customer, company, income, paychecks. So when people are arguing, two guys were arguing about something that was so minute because their egos were involved. I said to them, what's the best thing for the customer? What's the best thing for the company? Yet if they don't have that ideology of that company having values and it's got an entity that's actually something really good, then they'll just be against it. So when they answer the question, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No interruption.
When they answer that question, when he was like, oh my goodness, I said, yeah, it's like, again, like a parent and a child, you don't discipline the child, you discipline the behavior. The behavior is the third thing. The behavior is the system. And so, right? Because see, the brain is systematic and sequential. It has to put things in order of importance, and it loves a system to do it because it's a problem-solving machine that does algorithms. So 1 + 1 = 2. But if you don't know what 2 is and you keep trying equations, you try 7 + 9, and you get frustrated, as Stephen Covey says, and everyone said, you got to start with the end first, with a very deep description of the end, go back and create the equation. So in a company that has good mental health, that has core values, that, what I call discipline and core values, and comes up with a value proposition that's real to the company, not just something they put on the wall. You can see mine in the background there slightly. It says that I lead conversations that inspire genius. And it's up in my office, and everybody who works with me has that in their office, so that when they're sitting in there, they have to visually see it, which triggers that core value, which triggers them into the actions, because you need a physical trigger every day to shift your brain.
Interesting. Okay, so we want to consciously, realizing that all these programs are at work in the background, we want to consciously create these physical triggers because we humbly appreciate that things could really go off the rails if we don't set a few things in motion at that time when we are conscious, right?
You said it, right? Because it's trauma that's in the past. So it triggers the trauma. I'm not protecting.
Yes.
I'm not connecting. I'm protecting. Now I'm going to
Yes.
be the 54-year-old Keith with the 8-year-old inside saying, not a chance, pal. And now I'm no
Yes.
longer the leader I want to be. So being a great leader means that you're the leader. You have a brain that's operating you. I want a brain-heart connection, which is that whole humanities piece that I love that you're doing. So if I can take the humanities, and truthfully what happens is as people work with me, the filter in which they see the world changes and they become heart mind connected. And then I start talking about, spirituality and all the great stuff that I don't want to get into because everyone's got different opinions, but I'm a non-judgmental person. I meet people where they're at. I accept where they're at. I help them understand why they're where they're at. I help them sequentially create an equation to where they want to go. I sit back and I guide them there. And never once do I provide the answer to their business because they have it in their genius already.
Yeah. That is just awesome. That is such a powerful way to think about it. And it's interesting how you use language of both computers and machines and people, right? Both are kind of in there. And it's true, like we're humans, we're not machines, but there are machine-like aspects to how we function in the world, right? And that knowing that doesn't need to undermine our humanity.
Exactly, because there's autonomic systems that are running your nervous system. There's actually 2 autonomics, and then your brain. It's like, and I'm sitting here, and truthfully, at the end of the day, when I die, I'm made of carbon, and I just go into the earth, and I just rejuvenate the earth. I'm actually a plant with a brain,
Huh.
So I know we're way more complicated than that. I'm not trying to simplify, but I do simplify everything because, I have this depth of understanding, like, these years of coaching and then also my training as NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavior, the neuroscience and all this stuff. And I can get into the in-depth complexities of it all and talk about synaptics and connections and, but the truth is I simplify it so we can get there faster.
Yeah. What's a neat exercise? I have a thought or two to throw at you in a bit, but I want to ask you first, Keith. I'm a leader. I'm a human-centric leader. I appreciate that the mental health of my organization could use a little bit of improvement. Is there one or two exercises that you often kind of like to start with to help people begin walking this path?
Absolutely. Yeah, brilliant question. I do the same thing for every company. If you guys are thinking of hiring me out there, I'm doing it special for you though.
Everything custom, right?
Because it's the brain, everyone's got different variables. I want them to access the brain and their variables, right? So that's why I can give everyone a tailored plan. So what I do is I have my life wheel and my work wheel. And I know people have seen life wheels and work wheels before. Please don't shut this off. Please listen to the depth of what I'm doing because I have simplified it so that it actually gives everything the brain needs to operate at a high optimal output, connecting you to a deeper purpose, all with one exercise. And it's the first thing I do, which is stop, notice, start over. Okay. So, I also do a lot of volunteer work with people that are in recovery programs. And recovery is just like personal growth. It's just, different motivations, but then the systems that they build are the same as well, because they're really reprogramming a brain from addiction. So what I want people to know is the life wheel and the work wheel is, and this is the beauty of it. The life wheel is you put your parts of the life down. But let's just use this for work because I know there's a lot of what do you think? Do you think the human-centric leaders want me to give them the life analysis and how that impacts their work, or do they want me to give them the work analysis so they'll get more value on what to do in their job? What do you think, Dan?
Let's start with the second. That feels most relevant for the audience.
Brilliant. So you take a wheel and you put 8 parts and it's blank, and then you identify the 8 most important parts for your business. So sales, leadership, lead generation, marketing, team building, management, product, product development, whatever. And then what you do is you stop, you notice and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied am I in each part of my business? Because remember when you were taught in school, you need 2 variables to solve any equation. And if you don't give the brain any variables, it searches. And if you don't give the brain a problem to solve, it creates its own problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Huh. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you say my marketing is at a 4 and product development's at a 4. That's one variable. My plus oneing, this is what I coach. This is where I start. I'm at a 4. I want a plus 1 and I get to a 5. Now I have all 3 variables of the equation. Which the brain loves. And because it loves it, it can be calm. And because it's calm, it can be more focused. And when it's more focused, it can be more creative. And when you're more focused and creative, you can come up with your own solutions. And you can run this through your team as well, tapping into the collective genius. So then you go through all 8 parts of the tool, and you've got 8 actions to take in your business that are small actions that you've created. And because you've created it, you're going to take it. And then, Dan, that's the plus oneing. And if you did that every week, that's going to lead you to a 10 out of 10 in all parts of those business. Which you'll never get to, because human beings will never be at a 10, because the survival brain will let you get to an 8 or a 9 because it says, but watch out, the cliff is going to come in on you. So you can never get to the 10, not because of I never give a 10 because that's unachievable. I'm looking at mastery. Your brain doesn't allow it. Because if I was at a 10, I'd be like, oh, everything's great. Look, here's a guy with a gun coming in my office. Come on in. Right? No, I have to be on edge. Something's going to go wrong. And I want to take the brain, optimize it so that's less.
Yeah.
It's never going away, so I accept it.
Yes.
So the tool and the plus oneing then has a company operating. And you can also give it themes, because, if you want to have, let's say that, Dan, you're building your business and your theme is, humanity builds better business. So I'm at a 4. What can I do to go to a 5 so humanity will build a better business? And now you're giving the brain more expansive, in-depth solution thinking. It can go, okay, oh, this is the outcome that I want.
Yeah. Feed the beast.
Feed the beast, right? Like, hey, and this thing up here is just grinding away. And let's like oil it. Let's use it, optimize it. Let's give it what it needs, which is a variable equation. And I'm sorry that I simplify it to 1 + 1 = 2. Most people in their life don't know the answer they want, and they're trying the equation out, which leads to frustration, depression, anger. And then they're like, why am I not getting the life I want? Well, I said to a client the other day, what do you want? He goes, oh, I don't know. I said, then don't start the race.
Yeah. And of course, there's so much pressure on us, even when we don't know what race we're running, to just run, right?
Run fast, be faster. The brain has a mechanism of comparisonitis, as you'll see in my book, which is, how am I doing compared to Dan? Dan's faster than me. So if we get chased by the saber-tooth, I die. I need to be better than Dan. So the language the brain uses is better than. I don't like that language, because that puts me in a place of I'm not good enough. Remember, everyone gets to a point where they say I'm enough. In the meantime, what I do is I get that I'm not good enough mechanism to shut up and shift it to I'm enough, but it's always running. So I change the language, because language is the diet for the mental health. And I go from I need to be better to I want to be better. I'm at a 2 and I want to be better. I'm at a 3 and I want to be better. Not I'm at a 2 and I need to be better. Coming from scarcity, getting my insecurity, putting me into protection, getting me in fight, fight, or freeze, and everyone's an enemy and I can't do my job. So what happens is you go into the amygdala hijack, your limbic system overrides the brain, shuts it down, puts cortisol in there. Now you can't think clearly, you're in the fog, adrenaline to your extremities. So you got to do something now and you don't know what to do. And then you find this, what do we do next? I come in and I get the brain down to here. You can breathe. We can meditate. I do many meditations. I teach quick meditations, breath. I put your hand on your heart and say, what can we do to be more, what can we do to build a more humane business? What can we do to have more humanity in our business? And then go, and then I'll say, what do you need to let go of? And they're like, fear. What do you need to step into? And then this is the beauty. They'll come up with their own language. Some people think the opposite of fear is courage. Mine is excitement. So if I said, everyone else there, the opposite of fear is excitement, and what you think is wrong, that's telling. Telling is yelling. But if I ask you, Dan, what's your opposite of fear? You would say?
I think it's probably bravery or courage for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So imagine if you meditated on courage today in the morning instead of letting
Mm,
the brain default to fear.
yeah. Yeah. I like it.
Just little things like that, because I've created my daily routine, which looks really simple, but what it is it's a reprogramming of the
Mm,
brain. It's doing the things the brain needs to do first thing in the morning to optimize it to go forward. So my clients have to do those when they work with me. They have to prove to me that they've done those. Of course, it's their words, their life, their rules. I just
right.
need to see
Right.
it. I just need
Right.
to see that you did the work. And if they don't do the work, then I ask, what's the positive intention of not doing the work?
I love it. I love it. That's a great question. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Oh, it's fantastic. It's such a human approach to coaching. Coaching can seem like this human thing, but it isn't always, right? Sometimes we can, as coach, catch ourselves falling into our own pattern if we don't do our own work. It's very easy to not show up with the kind of curiosity and openness that can even ask a great question like that. We can get frustrated with our clients if they don't do the work, right? But inevitably, if we're frustrated they're not doing the work, it means in some way we're not doing our work.
Well, the good news is Zaina Kunik is my coach that you've met, and she's coached me for 11 years, and I've coached her for 11 years. We met in our training. We went into our triad, and we made an agreement. We said, this works, and we should be committed to this for the rest of our lives. And so
Wow.
every Sunday for 11 years, I've checked the four corners of my brain and do the deep dives, ask the big questions. She's an amazing coach. She's not my style of coaching. She's her style of coaching.
Yeah.
Still with, and her training. And yet she asks, if you ask one great question to another human and shut up, and then let them, start to unravel their thinking, they will get an amazing aha learning. And they'll become more connected to themselves, and then they'll have and then once you love yourself, and I know this all sounds fluffy. I used to be a hockey fighter. So when people hear me talk about this stuff, they're like, Zaina and I, when we were in our course, we stood up and we looked at each other and we went, oh, all this fluffy stuff. And now here we are, 11 years later, and we realized that was the stuff that we needed to be talking about. So crazy. So crazy.
Well, I love that you're talking about it, and Keith, as we come towards the end of our time together, just I'm going to throw a couple more questions at you. One, you have a book coming out soon. What do you have coming out soon that leaders might be interested in taking a look at?
Yeah, so a couple of things. The book's coming out on May 7th. It's Not You, It's Your Brain. How mental programming limits your success and how to get the life you deserve. They'll be able to get that on Amazon right away. That'll be, and if they want, what they can do is they can either visit me at my aimcoaching.com, aimcoachingprograms.com, check out my website, Keith Cornies, send me a message if you're interested, and I'll make sure our team gets it to you. So that's coming out. And also what's going to be coming out with that is an online training program called Purpose Driven Life. The purpose, it's going to be the Purpose Driven Life Masterclass. And I'm going to go through all the techniques that I'm using in coaching and why they work and how they work. So it's going to be this kind of intense place of short videos that give you information like you and I are talking about now, as simple and clean. And then the tools that I use that optimize that part of the brain. So, and it goes with the book, because the books, I have this facts to results process and how the dominoes fall till we get to our results in our life. And each part I coach to and talk about and put a tool in place, what I call the 7 magic pills. You know how everyone wants the magic pill, right? So it's a little bit of a sarcastic play on what the world's doing today. But yeah, so those are coming out. And they're going to be great programs. I'm really excited about them because, as I've gotten to where I am now, 11 years later, and writing my book, I really deeply understand on a very clear way what work I'm doing and why it works. So that's what's going on.
Awesome. Awesome. So last question, we love to end on a very human note. We've talked about some big subjects, how the brain works, how the brain sabotages us, how we end up in survival mode all the time. Want to end on this lighter note of asking, what do you do for fun when you're not doing this important work in the world? How do you relax?
I create experiences of joy. So what I learned was, when life is good, like right now, you and I are here, and this is a moment of joy for me because it's a high, right? when it's not a high and it's just regular life, right? So how do I find peace in the regular life? So I do a lot of yoga. I play hockey. Right now with COVID, that's been shut down. Right. And I create a lot of experiences with joy. So when my daughter graduated, we went to Europe for a dream vacation of her choice for 30 days. And then when my son graduated, before he went to university, he got a dream of a vacation of 30 days. So we travel Europe. My wife and I do a lot of traveling. We love, experiencing different parts of the world. And for fun, I ride my bike. And to be honest with you, I'm a serious guy, Dan. So this is fun for me. So I do a lot of this stuff.
I had fun too. Real pleasure to have you, Keith. What a rich, energetic, powerful conversation. So grateful to you for making the time, and I enjoyed it a ton, and I'm pretty confident anyone listening will as well. So appreciate you so much, Keith.
Great. Thank you, Dan.